Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the Broxtowe series, 10 parishes with an industrial past running along the western fringe of Nottinghamshire. Where are we today, viewers? Welcome back to Broxtowe again, everybody. Now, we're beginning this episode outside something that we're all familiar with. I'm sure plenty of us have been to one of these things, multiple of them, in fact, in the past. It's a motorway services. Can you tell it's a services? Look, there's plenty of lorries moving around in there. You might even be able to see a couple of signs which give away that it's a service area. But the reason that I'm here and not in there is because if I was to start this episode actually in the services itself, I wouldn't easily be able to get to the village that is named after. At the very end of this episode, though, I will drive through those services on my way back home. This road is almost like the access road for all the supplies and deliveries, I guess. This is the parish of Trowell. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like, and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Trowell, Trewell. This week in Broxtowe, we're taking on Trowell, a name that will be familiar to the average motorway traveller in these parts, owing to the presence of a well-known services on the M1. There's far more to Trowell than just its motorway rest area. The village which that services is named after lies on either side of the M1. However, there are two other forms of transportation in these parts, one very much active, the other historic. Cutting its way across the area are two railway lines, one which we've met before and the other a short spur that was built to connect Trowell to Radford on the other side of Nottingham. It even once had its own railway station, but that's now gone. The other transport landmark is now no longer in use. That would be the Nottingham Canal, which dominates the eastern portion of the parish, and although disused, it still gets visitors. The well-renowned Trowell Garden Centre sits along its route. Again, it's a village that was dominated by heavy industry, notably coal mining, but its location close to the Stanton Ironworks meant it had a backdrop of factories with belching chimneys not too long ago. Maybe somewhat surprisingly then, it was chosen as the Festival of Britain Village in 1951, a fact that's remembered here in two ways. Let's go and discover them both. We start our walk on the A609, which connects Trowell to the Derbyshire town of Ilkeston. Although a busy road, you'd never know by looking at these houses that Trowell was once heavily industrialised. Coal mining provided a lot of employment here, as did Stanton Ironworks across the Erewash Valley. Although industrially laden, Trowell was chosen in 1951 as the Festival of Britain Village. The Festival Inn, which opened in 1956, takes its name from this fact. The festival was a national exhibition and fair, whose prime mover was Labour politician Herbert Morrison. Despite Trowell having 4 public houses in 1675, the village was dry from 1870 until the Festival Inn opened. We've turned briefly here onto Nottingham Road to catch walkers. This is a very well-renowned fishing tackle shop, which has been a village institution since 1971. Of course, angling is a popular pastime in this part of Nottinghamshire, thanks to the remains of the Nottingham Canal at Orsworth. An about turn takes us back to the junction near the pub, and this is the area, sited on the highest ground in the parish, that can be considered the oldest part of Trowell village. On the corner where Ilkeston Road, Nottingham Road and Stapleford Road all meet is St Helen's Church, a Grade II listed sandstone building. There's been a church in Trowell since the year 801 AD. It was made of wood and was one of the earliest known religious structures in Nottinghamshire. The chancel of the present church is only slightly later, having been constructed in 1080. Much of the building is, however, 13th century, with the tower having been added in 1480. A Victorian restoration was undertaken in 1890 by that man again, Charles Hodgson Fowler, at a cost of £1,500. Trowell did not have a purpose-built meeting place until the 1940s. A growing population meant that the old school on Nottingham Road, which had been used previously, was inadequate. The first parish hall was an old army hut, which was replaced in 1967 by this building. The parish hall is a vital community asset, so it's the ideal place for a notice board then, isn't it? Mark it off, folks. In 1999, to celebrate the millennium, a black granite obelisk was erected on the edge of the car park here, and a time capsule was placed underneath it. The obelisk again makes reference to the Festival of Britain. Being on a major road between the two towns of Ilkeston and Stapleford, Trowell of course has a bus service. The magic numbers here are the 111 and the My15. You can find that bus stop right outside the local shop and post office, seen on your screens right now. After the shop you'll pass under a railway bridge. There are two lines in this area and this one is perhaps the lesser known. This is the Radford to Trowell line that was built in 1870. Its purpose was to provide freight traffic bound for Lancashire with a route that avoided Derby. These days, passenger trains use this instead. Speaking of transport, you can't avoid the next landmark. Soon after the bridge, the M1 comes into view. Trowell is split into two distinct areas by this road, and this is the M1 as seen from the road bridge that connects the two parts together. This stretch is between junctions 25 and 26. Next, you'll enter an industrial area. This is pretty much the extent of business in Trowell these days, a far cry from the days of thick black smoke from the chimneys that would have blown across the Erewash Valley. The biggest business in these parts today is logistics company Martin Barrett Transport. Okay, now at this point it feels like you've walked a long way, but really you haven't. It's just that the road's been dead straight and there's not really been much on it. All that's about to change though, however, because now we're coming into a very residential area. We're going to take a right turn up here and go around a housing estate, and then when we come out of that housing estate we're then going to cross the road and make our way towards Trowell Garden Centre. The housing estate in question is primarily the modern Trowell Park Drive and its various side streets. Unsurprisingly, this is known as the Trowell Park Estate. It was built in the late 1980s, vastly increasing the size of the village by 350 homes. These modern residences make Trowell quite the attractive place to live. However, this estate has had its share of issues. I don't want to put people off buying or selling their houses, but there has been a flooding problem in this part of the village in recent times, owing to the proximity of the Boundary Brook, Trowell's natural border with Stapleford. Although it's considered vital that the free and natural flow of water into the brook is not impeded by any future developments, Stapleford continues to expand outwards. Close to the border and by extension this estate, there are some brand new houses currently being built. Trowell's residents wish to maintain as natural a vista as possible and believe the village should keep its rural nature. This is backed up by residents of neighbouring Cossall, whose strong local historical connections with D.H. Lawrence help to ensure there are no further future developments within Trowell Parish itself. This estate features the only playground in Trowell, and here it is. Now, for the last few moments we've actually been following a route that shortcuts the Erewash Valley Trail. It's just one of the many public rights of way that Trowell is blessed with. Many are well utilised and enjoyed by locals and visitors alike. Generations of Trowell people would even use a public right-of-way to get to Stanton Ironworks on the Derbyshire side of the River Erewash. It was known locally as the Boards and crossed what is now the Trowell Marsh Nature Reserve to the river at Hallam Fields Lock. Stanton Ironworks was not alone when it came to local industry. From as early as the 15th century, coal was extracted here, commonly via bell pits along Trowell Moor. This is Pit Lane, where a later mine was sunk in 1879 at the back of what is now Trowell Grove. Pit Lane is now more about sports. Trowell Football Club used this recreation ground, which is sited on land that would have previously been used by the colliery. Coal production finished in 1928, and now the only remaining building is a store that was used for mining explosives, located within the allotments right next door to this field. The rest of the colliery land has been turned into a nature reserve, and quite a pretty one at that. This path makes its way through it before turning left to cross again the Radford to Trowell line. I'll use this opportunity to mention the former Trowell railway station. It was located at the junction of the Radford to Trowell and the Erewash Valley lines on the border with Ilkeston. Once over the line, we're briefly onto the towpath of the Nottingham Canal, but we can't follow this for very long. The reason for that is there's something rather large in the way: Trowell Garden Centre. One of the village's best known landmarks, this can trace its history back to 1976, when David and Barbara Henshaw started selling a few plants from the site of two old lockkeepers' cottages on the Nottingham Canal. Word soon spread that it was the place locally to get sound advice and buy compost and plants at value prices. By 1985, it was a thriving business, and a steady stream of customers made journeys up the tiny lane over the railway bridge leading to it. And handily, this board outside tells you a bit more about its location, as well as the Erewash Valley Trail. Okay, effectively for the remainder of this video, what we're going to be doing is following the route of the Nottingham Canal, which we've met before in places like Cossall and Orsworth. You can see here, this is where we are at the garden centre. Now the canal towpath is just up there. If we keep following this track, it'll take us to it, and you can see it winds its way back across the M1 and back to where we started, somewhere about there. So it's not all that long, but of course it is windy, so it will take me quite a while to traverse. So let's get on with it. At this point, you can take a shorter route back to the village again if you so desire by following this path. It runs to the church. For us though, it's the far more interesting route, the canal towpath, which we can pick up here at this old bridge. The last time we saw the Nottingham Canal, we were in Orsworth, where part of its route had been turned into a fishery. It's not the same here. This stretch of the canal is very different. There won't be many fish in these waters, it's vastly overgrown and has been left purposely for nature to reclaim. Don't fall in either, it could well be game over. The canal was formally abandoned in 1937. Now only small sections around Orsworth, Trowell and Cossall are maintained as nature reserves, like the ones you see here at Wroughton Plantation and Wroughton Pond. Nothing remains of the canal in Nottingham itself, and here's why. With no one to care for it, the water level was prone to rise after heavy rain, meaning occasionally it would flood the adjoining land. Nottingham City Council eventually set about infilling and culverting the portion within its boundaries in 1955. This then is one of the few places you can still see its remains. Even though it's quite a picturesque and generally welcoming village, you can't escape the fact that Trowell is noisy. That's thanks in no small part to the M1, under which the canal continues. As the motorway comes into view, we leave the towpath in favour of Nottingham Road in order to head back to the start. Fun fact, that bridge carrying the M1 over the village is just one of the 21 that were required locally when that stretch of the motorway was constructed. It's no wonder when you consider it had to span the Nottingham Canal, the River Erewash, the railway lines and the local roads. Here's a quick look up the road to Cossall, which by the way is just over a mile to the north. After passing that, Nottingham Road itself crosses the former canal via another old bridge, often missed by passing traffic. The remainder of the walk is now all housing as Nottingham Road winds its way back to the centre of the old village. Although the motorway is a little noisy, Trowell is a great little village. It's a far cry now from the days when the Erewash Valley was an industrial behemoth. The landscape was marked by the Stanton Ironworks and the air was thick with smoke and smog. And it should be mentioned as well that Trowell does have a primary school. You can find that on Smithfield Avenue off the main road through the village. Here's the evidence. You can see a school sign just there, or half of it. There you go, there's the rest of it, 20 zone, and the school is right at the end of Smithfield Avenue, which is a dead end. And there you go, that is the main walk around Trowell. We're just a couple of steps away from the church and the festival inn, and that is a complete circuit of the village. However, we still have to cover Trowell services, don't we? So let's get in the car and do that to finish. You can probably tell by the change of weather that it was actually the next day when I drove home, but I kept to my word and called in to Trowell services. Trowell is one of the few motorway service areas which were initially run by a small firm. Bids to operate the service area opened 6 months late at the end of 1963. Described as a 24-acre site, responses were received from Regent Oil, Top Rank and Mecca Leisure. It was the latter of those three, Mecca, who eventually secured the contract. They insisted that visitors thought of it not as a service area, but as a village. Mecca wanted to be different and described their facilities as an oasis on a concrete strip. When opened, the site was entirely themed around Robin Hood. Indeed, there was a sheriff's restaurant, a forest cafe, and a Marion's pantry. There was even a pub called the Friar Tuck Inn. In 1977, the theme was squashed when Granada took over. It's a bit more mundane now. Upon leaving the services, I had to include this from the well-loved BBC TV show Mock the Week, a number of years ago. In the Scenes We'd Like to See segment of this particular episode, comedian Hugh Dennis name-checked Trowell services in his suggestion for weird things to see on a road sign.
You are now leaving Trowell services. Wish you hadn't eaten that for 26 miles.
See you in the next one, folks. Thanks for watching this video, folks. Don't forget to like this episode if you haven't already. It really makes a difference with YouTube. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us a share too if you've got friends who'd like it. You can find all the links to my social media accounts below, as well as my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can donate to the channel. Also, if you've enjoyed this episode, have a look at some more videos in this series. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.